welcome to the Here and Now Show. I am your host, LaVonda Ray. Thank you. Showing a lot of love. I am not perfect. Welcome to the Here and Now Show. I am your host, LaVonda Ray. Thank you. I'm trying to get this camera adjusted. Thank you for being in my show. If you've tuned in with me before, you know that I'm coming from the Midwest where we come in and show out. Gotta love your city. Gotta love your city. Hello, somebody. And if you tune into my show, then you are aware that this show is a place where I have created and have took real life events and created a space of and turned my real life events into a positive living. I kind of stumbled on my words there. I don't know, it might be the rain outside. I don't know what it is. But thank you all for coming into my show. I am truly blessed that you guys here. So if you don't mind, let's start the show. Yeah, we're having a little technical difficulties. I almost think it's the rain. Let's do that. We back. As you know, if you tuned into the Here and Now show, you know that I am a person who loves jazz. I feel like that jazz sets the stage, it sets the room, it makes me, feel positive. So for a moment, and I'm losing my voice. I am sorry if I just crack in and out with my voice. I don't know what's going on with my voice, but I am here. So with that being said, let's play a little jazz before we dive into today's conversation. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you for joining me. I am so glad that you guys are here with me right here, right now. I feel blessed, and you should feel blessed too. This weather right now is getting me. It is so rainy outside. It's like it is storming. It is raining cats and dogs. I don't even know what that statement meant, but I used to hear that as a kid. So I've never seen a cat or a dog actually fly out of the sky or drop from the sky, but it's raining and man, I'm glad to be here. This makes you want to sleep all day because it's literally been raining all day today. It's days like that, but I'd rather not be any place but here. So I am glad to be here on this rainy Tuesday. Thank you. So today I'm talking about something. I'm talking about something that everybody, but not everybody wants to admit it. Something that we all can relate to, but a lot of people don't like to admit it. I'm talking about mistakes. Now, before I go into this conversation about mistakes, is what made me better is my mistakes. Is that I also have recently did a show on, about your mistakes. So this is a climb back from part two. Part one, I was speaking on your mistakes does not define your future. And so this is kind of the same, but not really. I just feel we're passionate about, learning from your mistakes. And I want, you guys to feel passionate about it and understand that your mistakes does not mean that you're counted out. It's the kind of mistakes where you're like, oh, I wish I can redo it. The kind of mistakes that people have judged you for, the kind of mistakes that kept you up all night thinking like, why did I do this? Why did I do that? Yeah, those. But let me say this before I get real deep. Some of the best things about you, it came from the worst decisions. Did you know that? Sometimes that is the case, you know? Um, and so, some of the best choices you made, were when you was making your worst decision. And I personally know that because I don't just talk about these things because I lived it. Anything that I have shared on my podcast since January, everything about my podcast is real life experience because I've been judged. I've been talked about and probably even laughed at. But I learned that one, as a young mother, two, people judge me because, I was a young mother and people would look at me sideways, and I didn't care. And I would sit back and I look back down and I laugh like, yeah, I really thought I wasn't going to make it because you'd already counted me out, you know. But here I come, you know, it's right. I'm a light that you can't put out, you know. So today I'm talking about learning from your mistakes. I'm talking about being a young mother and still growing through judgment. I'm talking about how to how to how your past actually built you for your future. I'm talking about and what you went through that can bless you and your children. That what you went through. And yes, we're gonna laugh because hear me. If you don't laugh about how the old decisions that you made, if you don't laugh about them and can look back and be like, that was the old me, if you can't do that, then you might start crying all over again. So try to laugh about it, laugh about who you used to be. So let's talk about it. So go grab you a snack or walk to the bathroom. Don't run, be safe. And if you're driving, keep your hands on that steering wheel because I want to take you guys home. I want to take you guys to a place where we can all relate and say, yeah, you know what? I can relate to that. So with that being said, I'll give you guys a few seconds to run and do that, literally a few seconds while I play a little jazz music before we dive into what I call the real deal. Because everything about it is real. I try to keep it. Oh my. I don't know what's going on here. I was having a little technical problems again. So, with that being said, I want you guys to go take your break, grab your snack, run to the bathroom, walk to the bathroom, park your car, keep your hands on the steering wheel because we are coming into your home today. So, let's take those few seconds.
Now we got to go help people customize and save hundreds with Liberty Mutual.
That was not my commercial. Again, I am not perfect. Liberty Mutual, that was unexpected. That's actually an insurance company that I don't have the rights to do those commercials. So, bear with me and let's start this jazz one more time before we get into it. Let's do this. Few seconds. Welcome back. Welcome back. I am back. I feel good. You should feel good. Welcome back. Well, as I was saying before, learning from your mistakes, when I was, I want to say that I wasn't perfect when I was learning. I wasn't perfect. I wasn't perfect at being young, a young girl, nor was I perfect being a young mother. But now I'm learning, and I'm learning that I'm learning along the way because even when I was a younger girl, when I was, young and going through my learning stage, because, as a young girl, even as young men, sometimes in that part of my life, I thought I knew everything, as a lot of us do, we think we know everything, and I had to grow up from that, I wish there were more people that could admit that, say it out loud. I thought I knew everything and I didn't. And the things that I thought I knew cost me a few mistakes because I didn't know out loud. I didn't know, I just thought, you start growing up, you think, you got a little too much dip on your chip. But I was learning. And with that learning, trying to figure myself out by that time, it's okay to try to figure it all out. It's okay to try to figure things out, but you can't figure it all out. And I remember, through my journey of trying to find myself, I remember when I was pregnant. I was pregnant at 16 and I had my daughter at 17. And I remember holding my child and I looked down at her and I could just feel all the love that she was looking at me and all the love that I had for her. And it was so amazing. But and it was amazing, and that's the type of feeling that that there's no words for it. It's just unconditional love. But I also was feeling weighed down by what people were saying about me, about how people would look at me, like say things like, "Oh, she's too young, and she's not ready, and she's gonna ruin her life." And back in my younger days, I wasn't above smacking the taste out of somebody's mouth. I wasn't above that. I hadn't had, the mentality. I had a bad temper. So at that time in my journey, if I felt like, because I could see people looking like, oh my God, she's so young. That's a mistake. No, the mistake was you thinking that you could judge me. That was your first mistake. And and me being a younger girl, like I said, I had a temper, and then I was quick to, like a microwave. Hey, what the fuck is your problem? Why you worried about me? In actuality, those moments like that I had, it was starting to change me because I didn't have to prove anything to anybody, and you don't, you know, and I held my head high and I kept on raising my children. Hello. Because people are always going to have something to say about you, and I didn't, and don't mistake it. Do not mistake it. There were a lot of nights where, my children would sleep, and about 3, 4 in the morning, I finally had a moment to myself because during the day I was being a mother, working, you know, whether it was, working or just being a mom, being busy, handling things. So yes, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning was an hours that I had to myself. And a lot of those nights, as a mother, as a parent, I would cry because I was overwhelmed, and I was afraid that I wasn't being a good mother. And I was definitely gonna break. I thought that I was gonna, break, and I'm thinking, oh, I'm gonna break at any time, but I never broke. I just folded. There's a difference, I wasn't broke. I just folded up a couple times, and I wasn't content with breaking. I wanted to prove people wrong, you know, but I showed up. You know what? I showed up. And because being a parent, sometimes you don't always get to fall apart. You have to fall apart in a different way. You have to stay in alignment with yourself. I remember the moments that, I had with my children when they were younger, you know. And my children are grown now. They're amazing young adults, and I'm proud of them. And, they made their mistakes too. But, they're amazing souls. But when they were younger, I remember one moment I was having a crushing moment. I was not feeling so great, and I was questioning my motherhood, even though I was doing pretty well. But sometimes we do question. And one of my children came up to me and they said something so simple but so real. My child said to me, "Mom, you know, you always take care of us, but who takes care of you?" Ooh, that question right there shook my soul and it touched my heart. I was frozen for a second in my mind because my heart had dropped. And I smiled and I looked at her and I said, my father above, you know, he carries me and he cares for me. And, above that, I told her, I take care of me. I show up by showing self-love and growth, and boundaries. And I do my best to live by an example so that I can show my children what it looks like when you don't give up, what it looks like when people are saying things about you, what it looks like to keep going forward, even when you have to hear negative things about you. You got to keep going forward. And yes, I have been, and then I realized, with that question, I also realized that I have been pouring myself into everything else. And somewhere along the line, I had slightly forgot about me. And when I started my journey of better living, I no longer cared who was judging me or what they said of judging me off my mistakes because I survived all those mistakes, and you can too. You can survive all your comeback. is amazing. A comeback from all your mistakes. Like, oh, you thought I wasn't going to be this, but listen here, I made all these mistakes when I was younger, but then look at me now, right? You know, and, you know, and I still have people that probably talk about me, and I'm still surviving all that. I mean, I've had people tell me that they've literally watched my podcast and then they have nothing positive to say. So in my mind, I'm thinking, are you watching my podcast to see me grow? Or are you watching my podcast only to criticize? But to leave that where it's at, sometimes being criticized when you're doing the best you can gives you the energy. For me, it gave me more energy. But I learned not to let other people's standards become mine. So let that soak in. Don't let anyone else put their standards on. You are only you. There's only one of you, and even I mean, unless you have a twin, and then there's two of you, but it's still one of you. But now, fast forward, you know, being a grandmother, you know, um, that's a whole different type of love, a whole different type of vibe, and I'm thinking like, wow, I made it through all of this to see my grandchildren, to be able to hold them. I'm still living and growing. Hey, that's survival. And everything that you've been through or that you're going through, everything that you went through, your mistakes are literally lessons. Every struggle did not stop your story, and it didn't stop mine. It just added to it. It just added. And now, me having my grandbabies, I get to be blessed to give them the wisdom that I didn't have before. I didn't have that growth before when I was young and trying to find myself and trying to raise my children and trying to work and live in society and at the same time make those mistakes. Some mistakes can cost you your future, but that doesn't mean your future is over with. You might have to do a little changing, but your future and your book is still being wrote. And so it is a blessing, that I can give them wisdom now, hello growth, you know. And it's something about being a grandparent, the things that we did with our children when they were younger, when the grandkids come, they get away with a little bit more. It's just a natural thing for grandparents. I love it. But I've always do my best when I talk to my children. As my children was growing, I always did my best to talk to my children and let them know that I wasn't perfect as a child. I don't go coming to them and saying, hey, I was so perfect. No, I was not perfect. And meanwhile, I'm having these conversations with my daughters and they say, hey, what's for dinner? What are we going to eat? Like, I'm like, girl, I'm trying to tell you about your life, how to change your life. But at that time, they wasn't quite ready yet. But at the same time, your life is given the fact that you were young and that you grow and you start to learn life. You know, um, the fact that you were young, but you started young. So the fact that when my children were young, I've always told them, to try to prepare them for the future. So, if you start teaching your young daughters and sons young, by the time they become older adults, hopefully that'll stay etched in their brain and they'll remember. And being judged when you're young can do something to you, at least for me. It hurts. At first, before my journey, and I look back and I'm like, yeah, when you're a young person and people judge you, that literally can do something to you, because you're thinking everyone is judging you. At least that was how I felt for me. And, at first, being judged, it hurt like, wow. But later, those very comments built me. And it can build you too. All the negative things that people say, if you're going after your dream and they're like bringing up all your mistakes. Oh, she made this mistake or he made that mistake. Hey, I did and grown and I did it and I learned from it, but you're too busy trying to point the finger at me. How about you worry about you and let me grow? Let me grow into my happiness. Let me grow into being a better woman, a better man, because we all get that chance. So, like I said, when I speak to my children still today, to this day, even though they are young women and grown, I don't talk to them like I've been perfect because sometimes, as parents, we want to talk to them, about things and leave out some things. No, I don't tell them everything because everything is not for our children to know. But the life of kids, I tell them the truth that I've been where they headed or I've been and I fell down and I got back up. And this is what I learned through all. I learned that because when you build honesty with your children or with people in your circle or people you deal with, when you build that honesty, it builds trust. And I will say this right now, you are not disqualified because of your past. You are not. You are qualified. You are very much qualified because because you know better now and you see things differently, and now you can make smarter moves. You know, I used to look at like the old me versus the new me. And sometimes I look at the old me like, man, I'm glad I'm growing. And I shake my head like, girl, you really did that. But you really allowed that. But you know what? That old me, it created who I am to this day. It created who I am right now. Hello, somebody. That old me showed me and created who I am today. And it feels good, and it'll feel good to you too. I promise. It feels wonderful to go through another chapter and not be punished for your mistakes. And also to the men and to all my women, all of us as humans, all of us, listen, stop beating yourself up for what you did back then. You was young, okay? You was relentless, that not I don't give a damn type of mentality or I'll slap the shit out of you type of mentality. But that was back when you were younger and you were doing the best that you knew how to do at that time. But then growth and development stepped in and wow, look at you now, right? Now you know me, you do better, you move better, and you move without shame. So you can survive, so we can survive, so I can survive, so you can survive for generations after us, you know? Because life really comes full circle. It really does. And from being judged as a young mother, being judged, just by not, living up to certain people's standards, but to be able to just love without pressure, you know, and being able to understand that why your purpose is and what is your purpose. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a therapist, I'm not a counselor of any kind. I'm just a woman that has been through the ups and downs of life. I've made mistakes. You know, um, I've been up, I've been down, and it's all about how we handle the pressure when the pressure comes. How do you handle it? Will you break and give up? No, that is not an option. You cannot give up. It's okay if you fold, but you got to unfold because if you break and it's shattered, you can't replace a shattered plate, but if you can fix a broken. So make that decision to not let anybody make you feel bad for your past mistakes. Again, they're the past. So before I leave tonight, I just want to say this to everybody: I didn't become who I am overnight, but my spirits. I mean, I'm sorry, but my mistakes that I've made, those mistakes made me better. Because of those mistakes, every wrong turn taught me the right direction. Hello, somebody. Every bad decision taught me wisdom. So I'm not ashamed. I'm grateful, and you should be grateful too. I want you to think about your life. Think about the things you could change, and to think about the things that you wish you could have changed. Hmm. But now picture this. What if those moments were actually preparing you to become who you were? You know, it's actually preparing you because when I look at my children, when you look and I look at my grandchildren, I think about everything that I've been through. I don't see failure, and neither should you. I see growth, I see strength, and I see purpose. And you should see that same purpose. And I need you to see that in your life too. Mistakes did not disqualify you, they developed you. Stop hiding, stop shrinking, stop letting your past speak louder than your future. I'll say that again. Stop letting your past speak louder than your future. Hello, somebody, because you're still becoming. And to my children and to yours, to your children, to my children, to your grandchildren, to my grandchildren, you don't have to be perfect. You just have to keep going. Keep learning, keep going, keep loving, and don't let anybody define you by your worst moments because you are so much more than that. You know, you are so much more than that because people will define you for the moments that you cannot change. So, as I leave this evening, I want you all to take one thing with you. Your mistakes molded you to the person you were today. And, sometimes our mistakes, may cost us a moment where we have to step back and realize, oh, that wasn't a very good mistake. And there are consequences that you will pay for your mistakes in most cases. There's a cause and then there's an effect. And in order to learn what the cause is, you go through the effect. And once you go through the effect, you can find the cause because I did this. And the effect of that caused me this. So understand that you are not meant to be perfect. You are going to make mistakes, but we can overcome all of those mistakes and still have a wonderful future. Because if you could control your mind, you could control your future. And that is so true. So I want to thank you guys for, setting in with me. It's raining still. I'm looking around at this library. It's like, oh my gosh, I gotta walk out to this car. But I enjoy sharing these moments. This, this platform of my YouTube has been a growth for me. I've learned more and more about myself, and I'm loving it. And I love it that you guys take this moment to share with me. So, with that being said, please, if you want to stay connected with me, Lavonda Ray, check me out on Marshall's Books and More, Marshall with one L. Also, if you care to hear other podcast shows and you don't want to just come to this platform, you can find me on the Here and Now show under my name, Lavonda Marshall. You can find that on Spotify. Hello. Also, I can be found on Amazon Music and Apple Music, I believe. That is the one. So you guys, please stay in touch. I'll see you guys Thursday. Just every Tuesday and Thursday, I'm here trying to make it better for all of us. Be blessed. Hey, cook you something great for dinner. I don't know what I'm gonna cook, but I'm gonna cook something. The beautiful thing is I have daughters and they like to cook, and just maybe they'll have something cooked for me. Isn't that a wonderful feeling? But thank you guys for tuning in. It's been an honor. Blessed. Good evening and good night. Oh, yes. Before I leave, I will have an update on my upcoming book signing event, Missing My Daughter Ava, book 3. Yay! It is ready. So I will be letting you guys know, giving you updates on when that book signing will take place. Also, during this time, I will have my merch that I sell on Marshall's Books and More for purchase. But I'm still underway. Maybe you guys could give me an idea and give me your thoughts, maybe perhaps. But I'm still wondering if I should do Zoom or should I do in person with this upcoming book signing. And so, with that being said, again, thank you guys for tuning in. Food for thought. You are worthy, you worth it, and you are loved. So, let's get out of here. Thank you.